Alex Rossi, Sky News, Jerusalem.
More about this. Joining me from Paris is the European Director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace, John Lyndon. Very good to talk to you, Mr. Lyndon. Based on your knowledge of Israeli elections over the years, how does this one compare? Seems pretty ugly.
It is quite ugly. It's turned into something of a circus, and that's sort of the norm in Israel, in that elections tend to be very aggressively fought. It's a very engaged electorate with much higher turnouts than we tend to get in most democratic societies in the West. But particularly over the last two electoral cycles, in 2015 and now I think even more tellingly in this election, there's been some dark forces, I think, unleashed with regards to parts of society being weaponized against one another, and some basic norms of how elections should be conducted being broken. We've got a Prime Minister, obviously, who feels as if winning this election is synonymous with him perhaps staying out of prison. And Benjamin Netanyahu is an incredible campaigner. He's probably the most successful electoral candidate in Israeli history at this point, and he knows how to campaign. And when he feels, I think, as if his own freedom is on the line, there's very few things that he won't try and do in order to ensure winning.
Yeah, well, let's continue then with Benjamin Netanyahu. So you're saying, I mean, it's on a knife edge of staying out of jail. He knows how to campaign. He knows how to deflect attention away from his personal difficulties.
Yes, he does, but quite often it's some of the weakest people in society that he's using to deflect attention away. There's been some very sort of right-wing racist forces within Israeli politics which have been kept sidelined for many years. Kahanists who draw their inspiration from an individual, Meir Kahan, whose party was made illegal a long time ago. Netanyahu has forged an electoral alliance with those politicians, giving them a pathway not just into the Knesset, but potentially into government. There's a story this evening that they may be given significant cabinet portfolios. And then in addition to this, there's been, and this happened in 2015 also, a sort of inciting against Arab citizens of Israel who make up 22% of the population. And I think that in a society that's already riven with issues with its relations with its Palestinian citizens, obviously is a function of the conflict. You're seeing sort of a minority being used by the right wing as an electoral tool, and that's an incredibly dangerous thing for any democratic politician to do, and I would argue that no campaign is justified in doing it.
And what about this new party, Blue and White? Tell us more about that, and in particular Benny Gantz heading it up. He's been around the political houses, so to speak, over the years, hasn't he?
Well, he's fairly new to politics, electoral politics, in that he served as chief of staff for the Israeli IDF, and he's joined by two other former chiefs of staff. This is probably the most security-heavy ticket ever to compete in an Israeli election, and I think the idea is that if you can put forward a leadership team with unimpeachable security credentials, you can reassure Israelis who very often prioritize security that they can take a chance in voting for somebody other than Benjamin Netanyahu. We have to see how this is going to play out. As your package said earlier on, even if Benny Gantz's party, Blue and White, managed to win the most number of seats, there's still not a very clear pathway towards government for them. And the main reason for this is, beyond the campaign, said that they would not sit with Arab parties in government. And if you look at the electoral map in Israel, it's very hard to see how a party from the centre to centre-left can possibly build a governing coalition unless it includes representatives from that 22% of Israeli society. I mean, if you think about it in US terms, I think 12.5% of American citizens are African Americans, and it's impossible to imagine the Democratic Party building a coalition for government without those votes. Yet the opposition in Israel routinely is refusing to countenance including them in an electoral coalition. And I think if tomorrow, as many people expect, Benjamin Netanyahu does manage to form a coalition with regards to the votes that he manages to build up, there should be some soul searching for progressives in Israel to think about ways in which they can deepen and broaden their electoral coalition to include Arab citizens as well, and form a genuine alternative to the decade of Bibi-led right-wing rule we've seen in Israel.
Okay, fascinating talking to you. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis. John Lyndon there.